Country roads take me home.
Thank God I'm a country boy. Yes!
The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
When the static of life fills your brain and the world seems a little too insane, just twist that dial, don't hesitate. There's a haven where good vibes await. Tune in and Take 12 for some joy and cheer. It's the sound of hope coming in crystal clear. Recovery talk, the music so grand, a beacon of light, a helping hand.
Well, greetings one and all. Welcome. Come on in. Put your feet up. Relax. You are about to embark on another fine episode of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show with my co-host, Roger McDiarmid from Huntington Beach, California. I am your host, the Montyman, recovered alcoholic, recovered mess. Yeah, we're going to talk about home groups today, the importance of a home group, and some other goodies, the Make Believe Take 12 Recovery Radio Orchestra, and of course, the Montyman's weekly wine.
Remind you you're not alone where you come from.
All on this episode of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show.
It's the sound of hope coming in crystal clear. Recovery talk, the music so grand, a beacon of light, a helping hand.
Zippity doodah day. Yeah, welcome aboard, everybody. The Montyman has a bit of a cold. Is that when I say it that way? Is that talking in the third person? Is that what they call that? The Montyman.
Yes. You're talking in the third person as if you weren't the Montyman.
I feel like I'm a third wheel right now because my head. You know, when you have a cold, your head, you just feel like you're kind of out of the body a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, you know.
You're kind of like that all the time, though, Monty.
Oh, you know me so well. You know me so well. Hey, happy Cinco de Mayo.
Back at you. Not a big day for me, but whatever.
Not a big day for me either, but, you know, good to
happy
recognize
Cinco de
it.
Mayo.
Yeah. It is also, by the way, National Two Different Colored Shoes Day.
Well, that is special. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you put on a different shoe than they don't match, it's okay. You can tell your boss at work when they go, "What's wrong with you?" It's National Two Different Colored Shoe Day. What do you think's wrong with me?
Wow.
Gee whiz.
I'm guessing I won't see anybody with two different colored shoes on today.
Probably not.
Yeah, show me your feet, Monty.
No, believe it or not, they do match. They do match. Hey, did you know that crocodiles can't stick out their tongues?
No, I never contemplated that, Monty. Didn't know that.
Be some useless and mindless information, but before we bring you into this part of the show, little ditty. Here we go.
He's moaning about the potholes in the old dirt road, grumbling about the tax man and the heavy load, sighing about the news he can't rearrange, but come Tuesday morning he'll forget to change.
Yeah.
It's Montyman's time to shine, with rims and wines on the line. He fusses and fumes with no fight, but we laugh and nod like it's alright.
That's right, it's time for the Montyman's Weekly Wine, where I complain about something I'm powerless over. There we go. Yes, indeedy. Okay, so a few weeks ago, Roger, I said I had a doozy for you. And I've kept it. I've kept it under my hat. I've kept it under my bill of my hat. and now I'm ready to release it into the wild.
I'm so excited. I'm waiting in anticipation, Monty.
So this is actually a bit of a serious one. Yeah, I don't know that I'm powerless, so I don't know what to do about this, except for maybe write a letter or something. I don't know. But this happens to be something that involves the health community, the medical community specifically. I'm not going to name the hospital because I may have to use their services someday. But at a hospital that we took our son to, who was very, very sick. He was having horrible back spasms to the point, and this is a kid who does not show his pain. You know what I mean? He's just one of those guys. He'd be in a lot of pain and you wouldn't know it. So when he's screaming in agony, I mean, literally screaming, you know it's serious. And so he was having these horrible back spasms. On top of it, he had a really high temperature. He'd been sick for days, and nobody knew what was wrong. He finally agreed. He's one of these guys too that it's going to take moving a mountain power to get him to go to the doctor. So we finally got him to go to the emergency room, and he went. 2 hours we waited, which if we were on the East Coast, it may be more like 15 hours, depending on what the size of the city you're in. It's not uncommon. They were very busy. Yeah, we totally understood that. It was really a horrific experience, though. Watching your child, no matter how old they are, go through that is really hard to do. So we're doing that. Well, finally he gets back to triage. He comes back. They call him back a couple of times. He goes back. Well, while he was seeing the doctor, there was a young lady. I would say she was probably anywhere between the ages of maybe 18 and 25. And she was with her friend. And she had been to triage already. She had the little thing around her wrist, right? And she'd already been checked in. And she turned to her, she was sitting right across from us. She turned to her friend and she goes, "Does my face look weird?" And her friend said, "No." She goes, "The left side of my face has gone numb." And then her arm went numb.
Whoa.
And first thing I'm thinking, I was like, Bell's palsy or something's going on, right? The next thing you know, she's going into tremors and then to full-blown seizure mode. And her friend yells over at the front desk, which is right there, and says, "We need some help here." And they did nothing, Roger. Absolutely nothing. And it was quickly over with, and the girl was able to kind of compose herself. And they did eventually, after about 30 minutes, call her back. She went into triage again. She came back out, and no sooner had she come back out when her whole body went limp. And her friend tried to help pick her up, and the place was filled with people. Most of them were not able to help. They just weren't physically capable of doing that. And so they started to bring her over towards the triage office again, and she collapsed on the floor, and now she's in seizure mode with her head banging against the floor, right?
Oh,
and the triage person came out and stood there, I kid you not, stood there with his clipboard in his hand and said nothing. The women, the nurses or the check-in ladies behind the counter, they stood up and they watched, and not one hospital staff member did or said anything. They didn't say, "Okay, just let her ride it out." They didn't say, let's get a pillow under her head. At the very least, get a jacket and stick it under her head. Her friend didn't know what to do, and she was in seizure, I would say, for a good minute. And they did nothing, Roger. Absolutely nothing. And we are all horrified.
Wow.
Right? And not even a word. And then finally, the triage person came over to her once she had stopped seizing, grabbed her by the arm, her friend grabbed her by the arm, and they dragged her, feet being drugged. She wasn't fighting them. They drug her back to the back. I could not believe my eyes. I was in shock.
I would write a letter to the administrator and
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
explain that and explain it.
unbelievable. Now I get this whole thing about lawsuits, and there's nobody there available who's actually a registered nurse, so they're just triage people. They don't know anything about other than how to operate the computer and take some information, right? And liability.
Yeah, but they should have called an ER
They should have
doc.
called somebody.
Yeah, that's
Where's
not,
security?
it's emergency room, and that was an
It's
emergency.
an emergency room. Oh my goodness! And so I was talking to a friend of ours that goes to a little fellowship that we meet on Tuesdays, and she's a retired nurse, and she goes, "This happens all the time." She said it would terrify you to know how often this happens. She goes, and it is a liability thing. They're not permitted to do anything. And I'm like, well, why didn't they call somebody? She goes, that's a good question. I don't know. I would be curious to know, for those of you who are listening, have you ever experienced something like that? I could not. And I got to tell you, this was actually a hospital that is known for its care and professionalism, and they stand above the rest. I mean, it was very unusual.
I would definitely report that.
Yeah. Very weird. Very,
That's
very
not.
weird.
That's just not acceptable.
No. So, waiting room experiences can be really weird.
I've spent a lot of time in emergency rooms over the years with people,
Yeah.
friends, my wife, me, whatever. A lot
Sure.
of them. And they're always busy.
Very frustrating, and I know for them as well. I
Yes.
get it. Yeah, so Dr. Marv Sapello, he was the chief medical officer for the Hazleton Betty Ford Clinic, was on the show many years ago, and I asked him, I said, are the ERs, are they like what they depict on television, where they're just running around like crazy? And he goes, they're worse. He said, sometimes they're worse, Monty. It's insane.
Well, here's the challenge. The challenge is that most hospitals now serve, they're an emergency room, but people come in off the street, and many of them have no insurance.
Right.
Or even if they have insurance, they have no medical doctor. So they come in and they're standing there because they have a fever, because
Yes.
they have a cold, because they have flu. So it gets backed up, and then you have serious emergencies, and it presents a challenge. It's just, and then you got
Yeah.
lawsuits and liabilities that take place. So
Right. And I get it. I get it. Our son came here. We made a joke about it later, but they couldn't figure out anything that was wrong with him at all. They took some blood. They told him, we thought it might be food poisoning because the symptoms that he was having, not associated with the back spasms. That was a separate issue for some reason. But and they told him, they says, we don't even test for food poisoning until you've had diarrhea for a week. I'm like, what? But there is some sense to that. I get it. But you know what they did for him for the pain, for the back spasms? Here's a Tylenol. It's a $35 Tylenol, but here's a Tylenol. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But there's a real, I don't know what it's like in any place other than Oregon, but there's a real fear up here of doctors prescribing any kind of pain medication beyond Tylenol. They do not want to touch that at all.
yeah,
Right. If you're going to be on any kind of pain medication, particularly if it's opiate based, you're going to have to see a pain manager. You're going to have to go to somebody that specializes in that. Doctors just aren't going to write those scripts anymore.
no.
And I understand.
But there are other things that they can prescribe.
Well,
that
I was
are
like,
not
can't they give him?
opiate-based.
They didn't even give him a muscle relaxer.
Right.
Just weird. But he did survive it. But the poor kid was. But this is one of the reasons why people like Colin, my son, don't want to go to the ER. Because, Dad, they're not going to do anything. I'm telling you. And so we drug him through the mud because it was an out-of-town hospital. And poor kid, you know what I mean? But
that's
it is what it is.
That is the reason you need a physician. You need a primary care physician.
You do. And a lot of people are running around.
Because when you have a primary care physician and you have something like that going on, when the primary care physician calls the emergency room, it's a whole different issue. Because now a doctor has called them, explained to them the situation with his patient, and that he is coming in and be expecting him. Because that's a whole different issue.
That is.
When you just walk in off the street, it's a challenge for them.
In fact, our retired nurse friend said, she goes, if you've got good insurance, just call the ambulance.
Yeah.
Because they'll get you right in.
Yep. It's the same with having your physician call. Yeah.
But you're right. A lot of people don't have a general practitioners. They can have it. They can. Their insurance may even do it, but they just don't do it. And they just put it off.
Yeah. Then it's on them, really.
Yeah, it really is. All right, so there you go. A reminder, crocodiles cannot stick out their tongues, just so you know. I know that makes you a smarter person today.
I'm really glad to know that today.
Aren't you?
That makes Monday very special. On Cinco de Mayo.
On Cinco.
Everybody that I meet today, I'm going to say, did you know that crocodiles cannot stick out their tongue?
Yeah, poor things.
Yes.
When they're frustrated, they don't go, they just eat you.
That's sad, isn't it? That's sad. That's a dilemma for them. Yeah.
I mean, it's a gift to be able to.
There's nothing better than a good tongue extension. when you're frustrated.
I'm glad you qualified that. All right, that does it for the weekly wine. Let's close it out.
Montyman, oh Montyman, can't you set it free? Grab your good life now and let the bad things be.
Okay.
Though you ain't got power, the love is in your hand. Come join us in the sunshine on this golden strand.
Yeah, baby. All right. We'll be back with the topic right after this.
Do you ever feel stuck in your recovery? I mean, we all have felt stagnant from time to time. I'd like to introduce you to the book, 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety, Getting Your Recovery Unstuck, by our good friend and recovery author, Dr. Alan Berger. Dr. Berger has helped to change the lives of thousands of individuals with his work on emotional sobriety, paving a new path to recovery for both the addict and their families. For your autographed copy of 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety, visit abphd.com. This book is also available on Amazon.
This is Tom Williams
and Alicia Martinez, and we'd like to invite you to join us right here at Take12Radio.com for the Came to Believe Recovery podcast.
Topics will include a deep look into the how and why the 12-step movement was so successful in the past and how it can experience that success again today.
You can catch up on all our episodes at Take12Radio.com by clicking on the Came to Believe Recovery podcast banner.
And I came to believe in a power much higher than I.
Show me the way to go home.
Oh, no.
I'm tired and I want to go to bed. I had a little drink about an hour ago. Oh, and it's gone right to my head.
Indeed.
Wherever I may roam, on land or sea or foam, you can always hear me singing this song. Show me the way to go home. I need to go home to my home group. That's what I need to do. And put the bottle down.
All right. That song, when I hear that song, Roger, I think of that segment in Jaws where they're sitting in the boat and they're just getting plowed and they start singing that song. and of course it attracts the shark, and all of a sudden he starts attacking the boat, But yeah, I had a little drink about an hour ago, and it went right to my head. Well, I never had a little drink. You ever meet these people who've had a little drink? Just like,
I don't know what little means. It wasn't in my vocabulary. Yeah.
What is that? All right. The importance of a 12-step home group, or a home group, may not be 12-step, but maybe we'll talk about varieties of home groups here in a minute. So this is what AI came up with. I thought this was interesting. So I typed in importance of a 12-step home group and see what AI says. And this is what AI says. A 12-step home group is important because it provides a sense of community and accountability, which are crucial for maintaining sobriety. Being part of a home group means you are known and expected to show up and make progress in your recovery, which can be a significant motivator to stay sober. Regular attendance at a home group can also help establish beneficial friendships and lasting relationships, as people in the group understand your unique challenges and can provide the best support and encouragement for your recovery. Additionally, taking on service commitments within the home group can further enhance accountability and give you a sense of purpose and belonging. Not bad for AI, huh?
Very good. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, though, it doesn't say a home group keeps you sober,
No, it does not.
which would be an accurate statement.
That is, yes. Just like
In
meetings
fact,
don't keep you sober.
Some meetings, some home groups might might do the opposite, depending on where you're at in your recovery. AI used the word accountability twice here, and I think that's important. So there are different types of home groups, right? There are there are life groups, which is a common title for groups, smaller groups in churches. Marsha and I belong to a life group, but they don't call it that. They call it house church, which we had a life group. Marsha and I hosted a life group for probably 6 years in our home. And so when we started going to another one that was hosted by another couple, and they called it house church, it was a little weird. House church, okay, but we go to that. So every Tuesday night, and we've been doing small home group, if you will, focused on faith and our growth in Christ. We've been doing that probably eight years, I guess, on a regular basis on Tuesdays now. And I belong to a 12-step group that I would call my home group. Some of the reasons I claim it as my home group is because I've made it a commitment to not just be there and be a wallflower, but to be there with the intention to listen and focus in where I can be of maximum service to the person that is coming in there that may be hurting, or somebody that's been there for a while that may be hurting. I think my job is to be of service. I don't think my job is to go there to stay sober. Although I will say, I am certain that by having that attitude on arrival every week, so on Friday nights, certainly enhances, my state of recovered, right, as a result. But that's not the reason I go. That's not to say that isn't the reason some people go, and probably need to have that reason in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a group that you favor, that you would maybe call your home group?
It's interesting because over the years, when you're brand new, you need meetings because you need community. We all need community, and we need fellowship.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, there was a need for me to be there, but it transformed very quickly into I wanted to be there. And I found out that there was purpose for me to be there. And I found out that we go to report to the newcomer at meetings or home groups or life groups. It doesn't matter to me which group. You go to report how good your life is as a direct result of the power of God. And in the case of recovery, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then to be of maximum service to somebody who might be hurting. And so I have a number of, I go to anywhere from 5 to 7 groups per week. And so
really,
three of them are, one of them I always call my home group, which is, I've been going there for like 17 years, and it's on a Friday night. But there are 2 other groups that are relatively new. Things have changed, since COVID. So
yeah,
I have kind of 3 or 4 favorites. But what I find is that I like all my groups, and because I understand my purpose, I understand why I'm there, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that I have clarity in what my job is, if you will, and that's to carry the message and to be of maximum service. So it was Dick B that taught me. He became a reporter of the truth and got rid of his opinions and stopped editorializing, because I did a lot of that in the beginning. I punted, I would preach and do. I made every mistake you could make in the fellowships, and people lovingly told me that. But and I'm not that guy anymore. I'm here to report exactly what's happened to me through the power of Christ and through the 12 steps, and that makes it. And if everybody comes to a group with that kind of mentality, they're special, because special things happen. People really get blessed, and that community is very, very important.
Yeah. I was, as I'm well known for doing, I was whining one day in a meeting, and I was complaining about some of the things that were going on in the meeting and the way I felt I was being treated. So I certainly was. I don't think I was on topic at all. I was just spouting out, And this one guy who he was a permanent fixture. This guy had been around a long time. Nice guy. Owned a Harley and he had the whole outfit, right? And just he was well respected. And he just looks over at me and he goes, you might be going to too many meetings. And I thought, what? I didn't think I'd ever hear that out of an old timer, right? But he was right. I had become meeting dependent. And I wasn't going to, like, you go to a lot of meetings. I wasn't going to a lot of them to be of service. I was going to a lot of them because I wanted to see what I could get out of them. One meeting that was held in the same building had way better coffee, because this one guy would bring this really good coffee. And so, that was one of my purposes for going. It wasn't like a side note. It was like a big deal. But this guy was right. I was going for the wrong reasons, and I was going to too many. But whenever you go to anything for the wrong reasons, it's a lot easier to find something wrong with it. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So if you're getting burned out on meetings, maybe you're going to too many, and you got to check out, why you're going.
Well,
especially
that gets back to checking your motives, right? Why are you going
Yes.
to a meeting? If it's all about me and I'm just taking, that's not the purpose of the meetings, and you're not doing the fellowship.
Right. Right.
The purpose in giving, you in giving you receive, like it says in the St. Francis prayer, right? So if you don't like, I tell people, if you don't like the meeting, what did you bring to contribute to the meeting? And you're just looking to take stuff away, and you didn't like what everybody else said. Well, what did you say? What did you bring? Because I always find that if a meeting starts off with negative overtones and has this sort of attitude going on, you have the power to and the right to bring some positivity and love and speak the truth based on our principles and what our fellowship's about. And that many times I've been in meetings where that many times changes the whole atmosphere. But if someone doesn't do that, it's like a brush fire. it sort of catches on and everybody
Right.
stays in a negative frame of mind, and that's not the purpose of a meeting.
Do you have a fan on or something in the room?
No,
In your room right now?
no.
Huh, that's weird. I'm getting static. Listeners, thanks for putting up with the... Okay, there it went away. That's weird. Soberrecovery.com, on their website, someone wrote, I do not understand how someone becomes a home group member. When the group says, or when I say, is there a vote? What are the requirements for becoming a home group member? My old home group did not have any requirements set in place, and I think I just assumed no group did. I think I must be wrong on that assumption. I think I've always thought of the third tradition as the rule for membership, which is the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking or a desire to overcome your addiction or whatever. Same questions apply there. Who determines if a person actually has the desire to stop? It's sort of a weird question, because most folks I know say it's up to the individuals if they do or they don't. And so this person goes on to say, my big secret is that I really did not have the desire to stop drinking. I had the desire for people to get off my back. It all worked out okay so far, so I'm glad I kept that little secret. Well, that little secret's not, well, it's out now.
Yeah. That may not serve them well in the future.
Right. How does your home group determine membership and why? And one of the replies was, you're a member of the home group when you say you are. It's that easy. We have absolutely no other requirements. My home group makes an announcement, the secretary, that if anyone wishes to make it their home group, to see the secretary after the meeting to get signed up. If a person signs up, they can put their name on the membership book and their sobriety date and year. Yeah, a lot of groups will do that. There's a group there's a group here in town that's been around. It's an AA group. It's been around before the traditions were written, right? And it's got, I think they have 3 cork boards, giant cork boards that fill up the walls, right? And one has got membership cards that are barely hanging on. They're so old and tattered, right? And they got little stars, like the star, and you stick it on there for 30 days, 60 days. And they're filled up with stars, and that board is full. And it's from people that have passed away sober, even, that were founders of that group, And then there's another board that's bigger, that I think it goes, I don't know if it goes like from a year to 10 years, I'm not sure. And then there's another board that's a little smaller that are like the newcomers one. And they have these little membership cards. Some people don't like that. I kind of thought it was cool. You know what I mean? Because it made you feel part of something bigger than you. Not to be boastful, but there's my card, and I got another star, and I got to stick it on there. It shows consistency. It might feed my ego in a positive way. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are. It seems like the old timer meetings have things similar to that. The ones that have been around forever.
Yes.
Because when Clarence Snyder went to Cleveland, he said that they did counting noses, which meant they took the name down and they recorded sobriety dates and they tracked it. It was sort of what they did. So I would say that that's a tradition that was started back in 1939. Or maybe they did it in Akron too. I'm not aware of it, but they did in Cleveland.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Dick B had an actual book that had names and addresses and
a journal
dates. Didn't he? He had one that was yeah from one of those groups.
Yeah, he found a lot of those things.
Had first names and last names. We don't use our last name. Well, you don't.
Yeah, I don't even have a problem. whatever. The whole anonymity thing is at the level of press, radio, and film. I don't have a problem saying my last name. That some people have. That's a big issue. So I don't know why it's a big issue, but it is.
Dr. Bob said there's no place for personal anonymity within the fellowship.
No.
So there you go on that. So I think more importantly here, because we could go within the recovery community and without, but are we actually outside of the recovery community if we're not in a 12-step fellowship? I don't know. I think our world is filled with people that are making healthy decisions every day that are part of the bigger worldwide community of recovery from sin, right? And I think what's far more important than necessarily being a 12-step home group member is being a home group member with some folks somewhere. Whether it's your coffee club, maybe it's your Rotary Club, maybe you're a scoutmaster and you've got guys that are part of your leadership team and you meet weekly with the guys, with the Boy Scouts or something. I was involved in scouting for years, and we had a close-knit group of adults that worked together and helped build scout camps, and I mean the whole 9 yards. This whole idea of community, and you get your Lions Club and Rotary Club and Elks Club and blah, I mean all these groups. I think it is human nature to need community.
Absolutely.
And I think if you have a tendency to isolate, unless you're dealing with some kind of mental health issue, I don't think isolation's ever healthy.
I don't either. I don't think we're not created to be alone and isolated. We're just not. We're meant to have community.
Yeah. And I think it goes deeper than even meeting once a week. So I'll share this. The guy that hosts our house church, if you will, on Tuesdays, Jason, he has asked me on several occasions to have coffee with him. And our calendars just haven't meshed, right? But it's important that we make that work, because you could be a member of a home group, a life group, a 12-step group, but hopefully you're going to go deeper in your relationship with somebody within that fellowship, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's important that Jason and I make that work, because I think if you just stop at the group level and you don't go any deeper than that, you don't you think, Roger, you're missing out on a lot?
100%. So what was it that started Alcoholics Anonymous? Bill, when he got out of Towns Hospital, spent 6 months with a Bible under his hand trying to convert people, and he did not convert one person.
Yeah.
And so the magic happened, the spiritual magic happened when Bill, through Henrietta Seiberling, through Lois Smith, badgered Bob into meeting this guy. He said, I'll give the bloke 15 minutes.
Right.
And they were together for 6 hours. The magic took place when Bill and Bob got together, one alcoholic addict talking to another alcoholic addict.
Sure.
And God bless that, and Alcoholics Anonymous was born. So one-on-ones, when you can be completely transparent, completely honest and genuine and loving and kind and tolerant, and you can be vulnerable, which is something we all have challenges with. There's a difference between transparency, which is a transactional kind of thing, and being vulnerable is a very personal thing, where you open up yourself to everything and anything and be vulnerable. So I think the small groups are great, but the small groups need to create relationships within the small groups that become kinsmen, fellow kinsmen in the journey of life or whatever.
Right.
That's how Bill and Bob met. That's what took place. One alcoholic talking to another one, and God showed up and honored. He said, you honor me, I'll honor you. You abide in me, I'll abide in you. Boom. the most successful fellowship in the history of the world was born because of that action.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And it has many, many fingers that go out. I mean, you start one group, the group grows, other
Yeah.
groups start. You know, we often joke about, well, you know, somebody got a resentment and took the coffee pot and started another meeting. We joke about that, but that is true.
it's 100% true.
It's true.
And a lot of good meetings. They
A
all
lot of
started that
great
way.
meetings came out.
They all started that way.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
Bob had a resentment at Lois because she badgered him into having that meeting. He didn't want to do it.
No. No. Yeah, which speaks to that whole old adage of, well, you gotta want it to get it. No, you don't.
You have to be available. You don't have to.
You gotta be
You don't
available,
have to
yeah.
think. Yeah, you have to be available, and just open. What does it say? The essential ingredients are open-mindedness, willingness, tied to rigorous honesty,
Yeah.
and you learn how to become humble. So it doesn't mean that you wanted it.
No.
I didn't want it.
No.
He just wanted his wife off his back.
This was my favorite position early on, right there.
Of course.
For those of you who are not watching the video feed, I've got my hands folded, right? I'm like in defiant mode. I don't want to be here.
Or your hands on your hips.
Are your hips? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, wise guy.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't
Tell me
know
what you know.
I-
Yeah, what do you got? I'm not. It's so funny. When that starts to bubble up inside of me, I just start laughing at myself, and then
Yeah.
I'll share it with somebody. You know what I was just thinking? I was thinking I don't like what you're saying, but I'm willing to listen, and I really do care, so I'm going to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had a guy. I wouldn't necessarily call him a good friend, but he was a good acquaintance. We never got close enough to be good friends or good buddies. We were friendly with each other, and he was a born again believer. And he would sit in a meeting, and he would share, and he'd start reading the Bible, a little pocket Bible, and he'd start reading it. And in this particular group that he and I both attended years ago, that was probably not the best way to get the sacred writings of Scripture across to the people in that group. Now, if you were to do that in my current home group, it would be great. It'd be fine. Because the way God expresses himself in our group conscience is the God of the Bible. And there are people that don't believe that way, and they have no problem with it.
You know, it took me.
Home.
That's a great point. It took me a long, long time to realize that if you want to share something like that,
Yeah.
tie it to the history of AA, because then it's not out of tradition. Like
Right.
the things that you see on the walls. You know where First Things First came from?
Right.
It came from Matthew 6:33.
Yeah.
I would say, I didn't know that. Did you know that? Nobody ever told me that.
And nobody can argue with that. They may not like it,
Right,
but they can't argue with it.
It's historical fact.
Yeah.
So when you do something like that, you tie it to the history of the program, then you're in solid ground, and you're not preaching. You're not
Right. In this poor chapter,
and a lot of people go, "Wow, I didn't know that," because you weren't preaching at them.
Yeah.
You were sharing what you learned,
right.
which gave us experience, strength, and hope.
You betcha.
Yeah.
So when this poor guy would do this, I would kind of sink down in my chair because I knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He wasn't wrong in what he was saying, but his approach was way out of whack.
Yeah, that
And
was
of course,
me.
He
I
would
was
get
that guy.
offended, and he'd start fighting, verbally.
Of course.
And it's like, it's kind of like Jesus, telling Peter, you need to put the sword down because I'm going to stick the Roman's ear back on him anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was kind of like that early on. I was like, because I'd been to Bible college, right? So I'm like,
all that stuff.
all that
Me
stuff.
too.
And
Me
so it was
too.
like, and the Lord was like, Monty, if you chop their ear off, I'm going to put it right back on. So calm yourself down.
I had people share with me a number of different guys say, never miss the opportunity to close your mouth.
Right.
My wife bought me, this is years ago, long before I got sober. We were separated. She bought me this when we were together. And it hung over in my bathroom in my condo when I abandoned my family. But every time I would go in the bathroom and look, it was hanging right there on the wall. I don't know why I hung it there, but it said, "A closed mouth gathers no foot." That's like indelibly imprinted in my psyche. And I thought, well, isn't it interesting that I hang it right there over and behind the toilet? Because my head was the toilet. And so was my mouth.
Wow. My head was the toilet, and so was my mouth.
Yeah.
That's like a country western song. All righty. Okay. So I would say, for those listening, that you may be attending a group. Maybe it's a Bible study. Maybe it's a coffee club. Maybe it's AA. Maybe it's NA. Maybe it's Celebrate Recovery. Maybe it's Came to Believe. Whatever it is.
Yep.
If you've only put your big toe in it and you haven't put both feet in, I encourage you to slowly at first, if you need to, move in that direction. Because it's not going to hurt you. It's going to be good for you. And those groups need what you have.
Yes.
Even some of your foibles. They need it. You know, I was talking to Chris S. the other day about a gentleman who I think has some strange ideas that I'm going to be having on the show here soon. And Chris said, "Monty, we need him. We need people like him." And I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the iron sharpens iron thing. We need people that we go, I don't know. It's and when we approach it that way, then we gain this fellowship around us. Let me see if I can find this. I'm going to read from the 3rd edition of the big book. 304 is the page. Bear with me, everybody. Okay.
While you're looking that up, I just want to mention that when new people come into the meeting, the old timers typically reach out with their hand. They usually exchange phone numbers, and they look to try and get a newcomer into a commitment, some kind of commitment at the meeting, which gives them reason and purpose to show up and get them on a phone list. So let's get your name and your sobriety date on a phone list, so you become part of that pack, that tribe, that community. And my sponsor for as long as I knew him, he passed away December 30th last year, but after every meeting, he would be the guy, but always the guy that would go up to the brand newcomer, offer a phone number, maybe give him a line or two suggestion on what he shared or where he was at or what happened to, his name was Tim, and it was powerful. I mean, it breaks down the fear of newcomers coming into a meeting. I like to tell them, hey, listen, I'm just like you. Don't feel alone. I'm just like you. I think like you. I talk like you. I acted like you. And here's a place that you can get all that stuff off your chest and be free from the insanity inside of us. And it's amazing when that's how you create community.
How many times have we heard people share that have been around for a long time? They'll say, you know what? I remember my first meeting, and John over there came up to me and shook my hand and said, "Would you you could sit next to me." I've never forgotten that. I hear that all the time. I also hear no one said a word to me. I've heard that too.
Yep.
So those of us who've been around a while, it is our responsibility to stand up, make our direction towards that new guy or gal, and shake our hand.
And say, welcome, you're home.
Yeah. So my son's church, Collins Church, where he's the worship pastor here in town, is called United. And when you pull up in the parking lot, I am telling you that. So there's banners all over the place that say "Welcome Home."
Yeah.
And everybody from every age group is there welcoming you. No one could ever show up at this church and say nobody greeted me.
That's powerful.
It is,
and that's the
really
way it's supposed
powerful.
to be.
Really powerful. It's really cool. So this is what I wanted to read, and then we'll close out with this, with our closing song. This is the last part of the keys of the kingdom. The author says this: the last 15 years of my life have been rich and meaningful. I have had my share of problems, heartaches, and disappointments because, well, that's life. But also, I have known a great deal of joy and a peace that is the handmaiden of inner freedom. I have a wealth of friends, and with my friends, an unusual quality of fellowship. For to these people, I am truly related. First, through mutual pain and despair, and later through mutual objectives and newfound faith and hope. And as the years go by, working together, sharing our experiences with one another, and also sharing a mutual trust, understanding, and love, without strings, without obligation, we acquire relationships that are unique and priceless. There is no more aloneness, with that awful ache so deep in the heart of every alcoholic that nothing before could ever reach it. That ache is gone and never return again. Now, there is a sense of belonging, of being wanted and needed and loved. In return for a bottle and a hangover, we have been given the keys of the kingdom.
I love that.
That's what you get when you plug in.
100%.
Yeah. Amen.
100%.
All right. Our comedic recovery song is by recovery comedic artist Michael Purrington, and it's called The Yabbit Habit. Here's Michael.
My sobriety comes first, except for stuff that I want worse. I'll do whatever it takes, and that's a promise I'll gladly break. A little honesty goes a long way, so I'll use as little as I can today. I'll be as selfless as I can be, as long as I know what's in it for me. I got the yabbit habit. I got the yabbit habit. I got the yabbit habit. Steps are simple, or so you said, so I'll just work 'em in my head. The big book is my inspiration, but it's open to interpretation. I'll go to meetings around the clock, crosstalk non-stop. I'll call my sponsor every night, listen close and do what I like. I got the yabbit habit. I got the yabbit habit. I got the yabbit habit. I'll start each day on my knees and pray to God for more for me. I'll stir up trouble everywhere. Then I'll say the serenity prayer. You need service work, I'll be there if I can be the committee chair. I'll be humble and serene. I'm gonna be the recovery king. I got the yabbit habit. 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 I got the yabbit. 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 Habit.
Michael Burrington and the Yabbit Habit. All right, a special thank you to my co-host, Roger McDiarmid from Huntington Beach, Yabbit, California.
Yabbit
And
Habit.
the Take 12 Recovery Radio family, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for each and every one of you.
Don't let the weights of the past keep you down. There's a melody here to turn it around. In each story and song you'll find a friend, a chorus of courage that'll never end.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.
I said, hey, it's good to be back home again.
This has been a Chicken and a Pig production.